Deputy Boyd Barrett.
Listened to the speakers from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael speak about why they will not support signing the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights into the institution. The word sophistry, for some reason, just sprung to mind. And I just quickly looked up the definition of sophistry. This is from the Greek sophos, and it read, "The use of clever but false arguments, especially with the intention of deceiving." And that is just what we got from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Very erudite, very clever arguments as to why we shouldn't sign up to basic rights like equal rights for men and women, which might, for example, address gender inequality and the pay gap. Rights to, I'm quoting from the Covenant, just and favourable conditions of work and equal pay for equal work. The right for trade unions to function freely. The right of protection and assistance for young persons. The right of everyone to housing and to the continuous improvement of living educations, the right to education. Now, does any government need the discretion not to deliver on those things? Is that some sort of defence of democracy? No, it's not. It's all about money. And we heard it with the quote from Mr McGilligan from the Department of Finance when they took out what was in the original constitution to try and make the rights in that constitutional cognisable by law, so they were more than just pious aspirations, but they actually were rights that citizens could legally enforce in the state. And the Department of Finance and the Department of Justice said, no, 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 we couldn't possibly give legally enforceable rights to people. In other words, we don't want to give them rights that mean anything at all on basic things like those I've gone through. Now, I want to say why we desperately need those. Desperately need them. Legally enforceable rights. Something that hasn't come out, but I hope it does come out, because I just got a call from a young student and journalist in the DIT, one of our major national education institutes, is a decision as of for taking students in from the Access programme into the DIT. As of next year, all students from disadvantaged, because that's what the Access programmes are, specific programmes to allow students from disadvantaged backgrounds to go into third-level education. As of this year, DIT are insisting that all students on those Access programmes, before entering, will have to be Garda vetted. Garda vetted. This has never happened in any other college before. The rest of the student body in the DIT who enter through the normal CAO system are not Garda vetted unless you're doing a specific course that relates to work with children, like social work. So only a small number of the general student body are Garda vetted for specific reasons to do what the courses they're doing. But now, if you're from a disadvantaged community, as a matter of course, you will be Garda vetted. A specific form of discrimination against people from disadvantaged communities, with the suggestion that somehow they are more prone to criminal behaviour, possible abuse of children, or other behaviours where the guards need to look into their character, background and history as against others. That is outrageous. Students who are victims of that should be able to take legal action against the DIT because it is denying them, according to this covenant, is that higher education, the International Covenant, higher education should be made equally accessible to all on the basis of capacity. Now that's outrageous. Students should have recourse, legal recourse, with rights that are enforceable against DIT. Similarly, with young teachers who are now working beside people doing the same job, equal pay for the same work, but just because they happen to have been recruited a couple of years later than people working with them can be paid less, a form of blatant discrimination which has no justification or basis. Those people should, in my opinion, have the right to have legally enforceable rights to hold the state or their employers, which are the state in most cases, to that discrimination, to redress that discrimination. And obviously the issue of housing is critical and has been referred to many. I mentioned the case the other day, Minister, of a young woman, mother, whose young 4-year-old daughter, their family have suffered a terrible history of abuse. I won't go into the details of that, but who are currently homeless and were told by the homeless services, although the daughter goes to school in Monkstown Farm, the family are from the Greater Dunleary area, that they have to go in and stay in a hostel above a pub in Francis Street. As many young mothers with their children, vulnerable children, are being sent into completely inappropriate so-called homeless accommodation, where the welfare of those children is at risk. The future and protection and the welfare of those children is at risk, not to mind that of their mothers. That is completely unacceptable because of the failure of the state to provide adequate, secure housing for them. I believe those mothers, those children, because of course we have a long history in this, don't we, from going back to the Tuam babies, the Magdalen laundries, the industrial schools, of the absolutely chronic, systematic, cruel failure of the state of our vulnerable young people, people from working class and poor backgrounds in these institutions, degraded, abused, tortured, killed and so on. Shouldn't they have legal rights of recourse to protect them and recourse against the state if it fails to vindicate those rights, to protect children in particular, which are mentioned, and in particular to provide the basic right of putting a roof over your head? How can Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael or Labour, who would seem who are sitting on the fence, say that a Parliament needs discretion not to give those rights? Not to give them. That's what you're saying in a very sophisticated way, like the Soffits. Right. There should be a reason not to give those rights. There should be no reason for any civilised society not to give those legal enforceable rights to our citizens.